Libertarian Counterpoint. Now, your host, James Justice.
And welcome to the show. Sorry about that. It is January 4th, July 4th, Independence Day, as we come to you live. I'm trying to go back into the winter. It's hot in my office. That's telling you what that all is about. It's July 4th as we record this, and it's an interesting July 4th because there's a lot of people, not just libertarians this year, who are feeling that the government is oppressing them. So we'll talk about the Supreme Court. And we've got some issues about the bureaucratic state. But before we get to that, there was an article in I caught it off of MSN, but I think it was from The Hill. National pride is evaporating in America. Regardless of where you're at, regardless of where you sit on the political spectrum, your pride in America is slipping, and I guess we all have our own reasons for that. But it's a problem as we watch our communities kind of dissolve. What's your thoughts on that, Richard?
Pride goes before the call, or something like that, or the fall. I can understand why American pride is on the wane. I am a patriot in the sense that I love the idea of America. I love the idea promulgated by the Declaration of Independence in particular, and to a lesser degree by the Constitution and the other founding documents. The ideas that America was founded on, which is a light government overseeing largely independent, self-sufficient citizenry, that's pretty much gone by the wayside. We're becoming more and more like the tyrants that we threw off in old Europe. We're becoming much more like European socialized democracies today. And ultimately, that's not a good thing, because all a socialized democracy can do is take from one class of people to give to another class of people, and skim off a lot for the bureaucracy in the process. So it doesn't make any difference whether you're left or right. You are paying a lot more for a lot less as the size of government and that bureaucracy continues to grow. If you take a look at some of the census statistics, you'll find that something like, I think it's 18% of the federal budget goes to defense. That's way too much, but most people think it's like, most of the national budget. Not. Most of the national budget goes to social welfare programs, primarily Medicare, which I'm a recipient of, Social Security, which I'm a recipient of. I'm not going to turn it down, but I sure as hell would prefer not to have it and not to have paid into it for the last 50, 60, however many years. So, and we're doing all of that by on borrowed money. We're not taxing enough to pay for all of the benefits, from the military to welfare benefits, so broadly defined, to all of the other things that the government is trying to provide for us, not paying for it. So the money is borrowed, and the borrowed money finds its way into the financial economy initially, which jacks up stock prices, and then eventually it jacks up all the prices, which is where we're at right now. You notice that President Biden is not bragging about how the cost of a 4th of July cookout is lower this year than it was last year, and he won't for a few years probably. So people are feeling the pinch economically at the pump, at the grocery store, and they're seeing whichever side of the issue you're on, whether say on abortion, whether you're pro-choice or pro-life, you are upset one way or another, because if you're pro-life, or pro-choice, you're upset because of the reversal of Roe. If you're pro-life, you're upset because you're going to have to fight that same battle all over again at various state and local levels, primarily state levels. So it's an every man against every other man, or every person against every other person kind of economy, and that does not bode well for a sense of optimism. There's no longer a sense in the United States that we can be optimistic, in the sense that we have the opportunity to make ourselves better by providing a product that other people want to buy, and doing it at a better price than the guy down the street, because industry in large part has been cartelized and regulated into into super behemoths that snuffle out any upstart new businesses. And that's by design. It's by design of politicians in conjunction with existing businesses. Not a good thing. It's easy to understand why liberals don't like big business. It's easy to understand why conservatives don't like the regulatory state, and they're both right and they're both wrong. They're right in the sense that government's too big, and they're wrong in the sense that red or blue electing is going to make any difference whatsoever, because Republicans and Democrats are complicit in the quandary that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, and it's not just the economics, it's the economics and the political division has really seeped down into the society and our cultures in a way that I haven't seen before. I'm 52 years old, so it's for the last 40 years, these political divisions didn't seem to interact into your living room or into your kitchen or into your sports leagues or into your community, right? The political divisions stayed in politics. And today, political divisions are in everything. It's in our entertainment, it's in our businesses, it's in our homes. It's very hard to be proud of the communities you're a part of when you're fighting each other all the time. I mean, how can you be proud of that? How can you literally be proud when you're just continually fighting constantly over every little thing? I mean, we literally fight over everything now, and it's become, while it's understandable, because as we talk about the bureaucratic state, you literally can't do anything. You can't even work the way you want anymore. Gig workers, the Supreme Court has dealt a blow to truckers and those of us who used to be gig workers, app-based gig workers. So California's AB5 is now, they didn't offer any relief to the truckers in California AB5. So now we're going to have the trucking problem is going to be worse here in California because truckers are going to go. And anyway, it's very hard. I can actually understand why there's such a difficulty in having pride in your country when your country doesn't have pride in you. Essentially, they don't trust you to go along and take care of yourself, and it's hard to have pride in yourself or your country when that's the case. It's just so I don't know, Richard. It doesn't surprise me, but I don't know what to do about it because this whole system is kind of we're watching it collapse around our eyes, and it's you're watching our society collapse around your eyes, and you're hoping that we can build like a phoenix. You can build something better out the ashes, but man, it's hard to feel. It's hard to feel encouragement. It's hard to feel encouragement for the future on this kind of a circumstance.
Well, I mean, economies, cultures operate in cycles, and we're in a very probably just past the top of a very long positive cycle. And the arc down toward the bottom of a negative cycle, it'll take a while. And the only people who will survive are the people who say, okay, this is what the system says I have to do. This is what I need to do in order to survive and thrive. And they do the latter, kind of flying under the radar, which becomes much more difficult with the surveillance state having something to say about that.
Yeah, the surveillance state, but there is some kind of good news. The Supreme Court put the brakes on kind of the robust EPA actions that they've been doing, kind of passing laws without even discussing Congress. I suppose the EPA is no longer allowed to do that, which is supposed nice, but Congress is just going to pass the laws, so I'm not entirely sure what in long term it's going to do.
Well, yeah, yes and no. I mean, as a former guest on Libertarian Counterpoint, former colleague of mine, now head of the Goldwater Institute, said, Tim Sandifer said, he paraphrased it or explained it very simply. Congress critters are elected to do good things for the people. They promise, you got a problem? I'll come up with a solution. I will do a good thing to fix, fill in the blank, pollution, inequality, the fact that your in-laws don't like you, whatever it is. And so they pass a law that says, do a good thing, and they enable a bureaucratic agency to carry out their law of doing a good thing. The EPA was passed saying, do a good thing, cleaning up our water and our air. And essentially the law said, it's up to you how you do it. You figure it out. You're the experts. You figure out how to clean up all this stuff. We're giving you essentially carte blanche. That's because politicians don't want the fingerprints on the negative aspects of what has to be done or what may have to be done in order to change the status quo. When it comes to air pollution, nobody wants filthy air. Nobody, absolutely nobody. And the reason it exists, it's a neighborhood effect. The reason it exists is because it's cheaper to ignore the pollution that's coming out of the tailpipe or up the smokestack than it is to fix it. And for competitive reasons, people don't fix it. But when you enable the EPA to come up with solutions, quote unquote, they come up with some of the damnedest, craziest things that you can possibly think of that may or may not work. We've seen it very, very explicitly how smart experts are with the way they handled the pandemic. Like, not at all. Like, had adverse effects. Everything that the federal government did seemed to backfire and make the whole situation worse. That's what's happening to a large extent with a lot of these regulations. And you've got bureaucrats who are protected by civil service rules and essentially cannot be fired. So they're in it for life. They don't care whether or not the rules that they make up are effective. The Congress critters can say, well, it's not my fault. You go talk to the bureaucrats. They're the ones that are messing things up. The president can say, well, I'm replacing people at the top, but I can't get rid of the civil service employees. And they're all right, but they're all wrong because they set the system up in that way in the first place. Now, what the EPA suit does, in effect, is it reverses or starts to chip away at the Chevron doctrine and a few other doctrines, Lochner, a few other doctrines, Supreme Court precedents that make it real easy for Congress to delegate rulemaking authority. Ultimately, I think what Gorsuch and others in the new majority want to do is they want to say to Congress, if you want a law that says, in the environmental case, it was about cap and trade. If you want a cap and trade law, you, Congress, write that law. Don't delegate it to somebody that can't be fired and don't have any personal stake in the game. You do it yourself, and if it works, fine. If it doesn't work, then you change the law to something that may in fact work. But write the law. In fact, there's an organization out there that says that the campaigns for write the laws, read the bills, and that's a great idea. Make Congress do what they're supposed to do, other than simply run for re-election perpetually.
Well, what's interesting, on the 4th of July, when we're recording this, we actually forget. There's a lot of the time we say that we rebelled over taxes, but we actually didn't rebel over taxes. We rebelled over the way the taxes were implemented. They actually didn't care all that much about the tax money. They cared about having the new tax system what's the word I'm looking for? Enforced on them. Just enforced without any choice. It was taxation without representation was the actual complaint. And here with the EPA and these rogue agencies, you have the same problem, is where the average person has no representation in these agencies, right? Because the system the politicians set it up that way, so they don't have to be accountable. Hey, look, stuff is happening, but it's not our fault. But yes, it is your fault.
And the taxes are in effect indirect, because they don't actually, most of the time, they don't actually levy a tax. They just change the rules of the game in such a way that the cost of doing business increases dramatically. Will those changes in the rules and the way businesses do business be helpful as far as the environment is concerned? Maybe, maybe not. That's an empirical question. But what's not an empirical question is that Congress escapes the blame if it goes badly and reaps the praise if it actually works. Unfortunately, Congress is not reaping a lot of praise lately.
No, because none of it works. It's hard to reap praise when everything is broken. Well, talking about being broken, Jeff Bezos, apparently is now upset with Joe Biden. Geez, I'm having a Joe Biden day here. I can't think of the words I want. Jeff Bezos is upset with Joe Biden complaining about the high gas companies for the high prices of gas. Now, this is really interesting because Jeff Bezos is a big lefty. He's the owner of the Washington Post, right? He's been covering Biden's butt for a long time, and apparently this is the step too far. You can't ignore basic economic realities or what, but it's an interesting sign that at least on occasion, these people who cover the butts of these politicians will occasionally go out and say, hey, look, this is just so stupid. Even I can't agree with it. It's
Well, yeah, and the cost of gas is going up. Everybody knows it. Everybody is not happy with it, and Biden has been grasping at straws, trying to figure out who to blame. Well, there's two places to put blame on the price of gas. One place is just inflationary pressures caused by Fed money printing. That's primary. Without the enabling printing of new money, by lending new money into the banking system and financing federal debts and federal overspending and subsidies to consumers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Without the enablement of the Fed, there would be no inflation. Would not physically be possible to occur. That's just number one. You can't have inflation without the Fed providing the money for it to take place. You'll have changes in the volatility or the velocity of money from time to time, but those don't last particularly long, and they'll reverse themselves and self-correct. But when you have long-term consistent inflation, it's like Milton Friedman said, it's ultimately a monetary situation. So Biden has never ever admitted any complicity on the part of the Fed. He's got the Fed's back. In fact, he reappointed Jerome Powell, the guy that engineered the last wave of money printing. So there's no taking of responsibility whatsoever for the actual cause of inflation. The secondary cause of inflation when it comes to gas prices is the whole slavish addiction to the new green policy, the new green wave or whatever they call it. The first day in office, I think it was, the Biden administration shut down the Keystone Pipeline, which is ready to go live. The Keystone Pipeline would have brought oil from Canada to the United States to be refined in the United States, and in a very safe way. Pipelines are hugely much more safe to the environment than shipping oil by rail or any other way. Rail or tanker doesn't make any difference. Pipelines are the gold star way of shipping oil without environmental damage. But it was shut down anyway because, hey, it's oil. So he did that, and then the second thing he's done is he's not made it possible for people to explore for oil on public lands. He's thrown all kinds of monkey wrenches into that process. And the third thing he's done is he's paid lip service to all of the Green New Deal rhetoric, which tells oil executives, why the hell should we be investing in oil wells? Why should we be investing in refineries? And refineries are key. The number of refineries has gone down dramatically over the number of the refinery capacity has gone down dramatically over the last couple of decades. Why? Because the oil executives are saying, we're not going to invest in a long-term, make a long-term billion or trillion dollar investment if our whole business model is going to get shut down like the politicians are threatening to do by 2035 or 2050 or whatever they're saying. So the number of refineries is going down. That's constricting the amount of fuel that actually gets distributed. So you've got shutting down supply on one end, and you've got raising the amount of money on the other end. Why do you think prices are going up? It's real simple. It's not because of Putin. It's not because of the gas companies overcharging. It's because of government malfeasance from A to Z.
I don't even want to call it malfeasance. They've actually told us in the last 15, 20 years that they want high gas prices. They want them. The political left wants the high gas prices to force us out of our cars and into public transport, and they're happy about it. So they're just pretending. They're pretending to care, and you can actually save it. I caught this. What was it on? There was a Biden administration on TV. I caught a clip that he says, "Well, these high prices are just here to stay. We're just going to have to. This is the way that it is, and we're just going to have to deal with it." Essentially,
yeah. To enforce, get this, the new liberal order.
Yes, that's what it was. See, you caught these. I'm having my Biden brain is kicking in today. Jesus,
the new liberal order. I mean, that's a much more honest interpretation of the new world order under G.W. Bush. We've got the masks coming off of the elites who would rule every aspect of our lives given half a chance.
Well, and that brings us to our next one. It's how much should the government know about what you're doing, how much you're moving around. We have these politicians who like to say they're protecting us from the marketers, right? We need to protect your information, right? Protect your data, which is in the open market, your individual data is completely worthless. It's worth about 10 cents. Your actual data isn't worth anything. But I'm not afraid of marketers. I'm not. I'm afraid of the rogue FBI, the rogue CIA, all these other people putting these dots together that don't exist because, I live a strange life. And now all of a sudden I'm under some goofy investigation or on another list because the government is watching me, but they're going to protect me from those marketing people who are going to try to sell me a new shoes or a new hard drive or whatever. Now, I don't get it. I don't get why everybody's upset.
Protecting people against marketing is just cover for the crime of spying on you. I've got a T-shirt that says the NSA is the only bureaucracy that actually listens to you.
Well, it's probably true. They really are. The only ones who care what you say. It's just, I don't understand why so many people are upset about this whole data thing, but then they just turn a blind eye to what Eric Snowden and all these, and what these people we've shown time and time again, that the government breaks their own rules and they don't care. They just keep going on about it. And we talk about living in a country, but every citizen has always lived under the rule of law. The difference between the Americans' the United States rule of law was the government was supposed to live under the same rule of law. The government and the politicians were supposed to live under the same rule of law as the people, and that is simply no longer the case, if it ever actually was. But
ostensibly it's still the case, but it's a case with a whole lot of loopholes and escape hatches and other ways of avoiding it. Witness how little attention Nancy Pelosi's drunk husband got for getting a DWI. I think he may have even gotten off. I don't know. The point is, we have a system where we have two levels of law enforcement. We've got one level of law enforcement for people who are anti-government in one way or another, and they'll be spied on and eavesdropped on and surveilled till forever in order to find dirt on them. And with so many laws in the United States, it's not that hard to find dirt if you've got unlimited listening and spying capacity, which the federal government does. Then there's the people who run the agencies, work in Congress or in the administrative agencies, and somehow or another they escape all of the dragnets, and they just pretty much do what they please because they're not surveilled on, because hey, they're part of the club, and you're not.
Yeah, well, we're not part of the club. Well, speaking about part of the club, we'll move on real quick to the end. Mark Zuckerberg has what they called an original idea for getting rid of employees, though quite frankly, it's not an original idea at all. But he says he's turning up the production pressure, and if you no longer want to work here, if you don't like the new environment, the new work environment, it's okay by him. Well, that's kind of like how places have always worked, right? If you don't fit into the work environment, it's your problem, not the work environment's. Right now,
yeah, well, increase the workload, and if you don't like it, there's the door.
Yeah, it's like, well, that's how places of business have always kind of worked. You either work at the place, and you enjoy the work environment that place has, and the work culture that place has, or you find some place that has a different culture, right? That's how these things have worked. But I guess, I don't know, has tech really become that disassociated with the real life that these people in tech and Facebook and down in the Bay Area, they just have to go to work, and what are they doing?
Well, they're doing you say our data is not worth anything, but if you take a look at the reality, our data is worth a hell of a lot, because you get Facebook for free, you get Gmail for free, you get YouTube for free, you get Google search for free. If you're getting something for free, you're the product.
Yeah, and I don't mind being the product. I want to know what hell all these workers
and you as a product are worth a lot to the marketers, the people who want to buy targeted advertising. You've all had the experience where if you go on the internet and shop for a pair of baby shoes, you immediately within seconds you get bombarded with baby shoe ads.
Yeah,
and that's because they're selling data to people they know have an interest in whatever the seller wants to advertise. That increases the effectiveness of the advertising. It can be up to $100,000 or more per click, even if you don't buy anything to an advertiser, depending on what the product is. So, it's a very efficient advertising model. It's what's driven newspapers out of business. Radio stations are having a hard time. TV stations are having a hard time because the internet has a much more efficient advertising model. They're not broadcasting to a mass market. They're broadcasting to a micro market that has expressed an interest specifically in what it is the advertiser is trying to sell. So, it's a model that works, and there's the economy of scale. I forget, there's a term for it. Once you have more or less a de facto monopoly on a marketplace, like Google has on search, like Facebook has on, and Twitter have on social. Once you have that much market presence, it makes it much more difficult for, I don't know, MySpace, remember them, to actually compete, because everybody's on FaceTime. Now, I understand that that's not the case with younger people anymore, and that's good. But it's
everybody used to shop at Sears until they didn't, right? Until Walmart came around, and it took a while for Sears to go away, but it eventually went away. And Facebook will eventually go away unless it adapts, and they're trying to adapt, and we'll see how well it works. We all have our skeptics, but it's just surprising me that they have that many employees where the solution is, we're just going to turn up the workload. Well, what have these people been doing?
Well, I tell you what they've been doing is they've been policing the content to make sure there's nothing in there that's either libertarian or conservative, that it all parrots the New World Liberal Order party line.
Yeah, there must be a lot of fat in the Facebook bureaucracy. I'm guessing it's what they're discovering here. There's a lot of people who don't. Well, I don't want to say diversity hires because that's probably not exactly accurate. But there's a lot of people who are probably space wasters, as Elon Musk called them at Tesla. He got rid of them down at Tesla too. All these people who got hired to fill quotas are going to be the first ones to get booted out. So, you either make money for the company or you don't, right? That's the key here. So we've got, 40 seconds, Richard. So you got a closing thing for 4th of July?
My closing thought is, whatever you do, remain optimistic. Don't give up hope. The idea of America will live, and it will live forever, because it's the idea of liberty, the idea of personal autonomy, personal responsibility, and being willing to go the extra mile to achieve something that benefits humanity. And if you can do that, you'll be successful. It's much more difficult now that you have to stumble over a bunch of government roadblocks, but it's not impossible. And it's something that everybody needs to aspire to if they want to remain happy and sane.
And with that is a good message to leave us on. Thank you, Richard. Thank you all for watching us. We'll see you next week. And please remember,